Word is that Israel will launch a limited ground invasion, which is supposedly imminent. We shall see. I'm seeing a bunch of different, 12 minutes ago, Washington Post says Israel planning a limited ground operation. We don't know.
AKA an invasion of a sovereign country.
Yeah. Don't know what is going to happen with that at this point. But we do know that on Friday, Israel struck a suburb of Beirut. They've also now launched attacks in things that are like less suburban areas. And we're talking about 2,000-pound bombs. We know that the Hezbollah leader Nasrallah was killed. But here, let's show some of the destruction of, I think, this is from, from that assault. A huge, 7 blocks wiped out. We'll play this. Just completely leveled.
2,000-pound bombs, that was supposed to be the red line in Gaza, according to the Biden administration. That's being used reportedly in the immediate outskirts of Beirut.
Now, necessarily, when you drop those bombs, necessarily, in that area, you know you're going to kill civilians. This is not, it may be collateral in the way that you deem it, but it is you know that you're going to kill civilians. And you can say, well, what if, you don't think the U.S. would do that if, bin Laden, we had to drop it on bin Laden? Here's a post from Charlie Savage, who actually wrote a book, Power Wars, which has what he calls a lengthy account of the national security legal deliberations behind the SEAL Team 6 raid of the compound in which bin Laden was hiding in Pakistan. And this is, I'm going to read part of the clip from his book. I think you can find that if you scroll down. One variation called for having B-2 stealth bombers drop 32 smart bombs, each 2,000 pounds. I think the Israelis actually ended up dropping twice as many of that.
I'll find that, yeah.
One variation called for having a B-2 stealth bombers drop 32 smart bombs, each 2,000 pounds, to annihilate the compound. This would ensure the destruction of any bunkers beneath the compound. If bin Laden was inside, he would die. But all the women and children in his compound would die too. And so would a lot of other people who had nothing to do with bin Laden. The compound was in the middle of a neighborhood. Mind you, this was not in a compound. This was just in a neighborhood where the Israelis bombed. The tentative casualty estimate was 50 to 100 people. We have no idea what the casualty rate was in this area. We know that it's, some amount of it was in the hundreds. But here we're talking about the U.S. having the opportunity to kill bin Laden. The tentative casualty estimate was 50 to 100 people, most of whom, of course, would be innocent civilians in a country with whom we were not at war. As Leon Panetta later wrote. Leon Panetta, of course, and this is where you get to see, he was, I think at that point, the director of the CIA.
Yep.
Or was he defense at that point? Nevertheless, Leon Panetta, by virtue of the positions he's held in our national security, would not be considered, he's not from Code Pink.
I think he was director of the CIA. He oversaw the operation that killed bin Laden.
Cartwright was another official, put it in more vivid terms. That much ordnance going off would be the equivalent of an earthquake.
Yeah.
And they went through both the legal and the moral and the political arguments and found, like, we're not doing this. And now, look at this. At least by U.S. standards, which, historically speaking, this country is not run by anti-war activists by any stretch of any stretch. Doing this type of bombing, this goes for the dropping of those 2,000-pound ordinances in Gaza as well, is something that the U.S. would never do. But now we have a sort of like more of an apples to apples comparison. When we had the opportunity to do what Israel just did to Nasrallah, to Osama bin Laden, we were like, it's a bridge too far.
In terms of the numbers, the Washington Post doesn't have a full confirmation, but they say in the video, 8 F-15s carrying at least 16 2,000-pound bombs take off. You can see photos released by the IDF showed individual planes fitted with at least 3 and as many as 6 BLU-109s each. So you see 8 planes carrying between 3 and 6 2,000-pound bombs each. And if you do the quick math on that, I think you're right. That would have been more than would have been considered for bin Laden.
That was even considered and ruled out because it would have been too much, so-called collateral damage.
Yeah, and when you talk about an earthquake, I mean, I've heard accounts from people in Beirut that their windows were blown out, and they were just thankful to be safe, but that their windows are blown out because of the force of this weaponry. And it's also the proximity to Beirut that I think is really important for people to realize. Like, they're getting closer and closer to the literal city. It's on the immediate outskirts where they're doing this bombing, from my understanding. And it's really hard to see where exactly it is. But that in and of itself is a message that we're coming for the most populous center of the country and getting really, really close to that area regardless. So, the Biden administration it's been, by any measure, the most objective failure in foreign policy I can think of. And people will say, like, oh, but this is what he actually wanted. I mean, at the end of the day, yes, he's a Zionist, and he would say, like, oh, Israel can conduct their affairs in the way that they want. But I don't think he wants a broader regional war just because of self-interest. But he's not willing to pull any of the mechanisms that he would need, pulling the levers that he would need to stop that. Although maybe I'm being naive. Maybe Biden has always really wanted some sort of confrontation with Iran, and that's part of why he didn't re-enter into the Iran nuclear deal in the way that Obama did. And when we look back on that deal, it really is a phenomenal achievement by Obama that was scrapped by Trump. And you can just see how precarious the situation is. The level of, like, pro-Israel, conservative, neocon, AIPAC, Zionist, like, opposition to any kind of normalization with Iran and peace in that region, you see how overwhelming it is. So the fact that they got that over the finish line in the twilight of his administration, it just shows, honestly, it just highlights how horrible Biden is.
Buckets and buckets. Sam, are you saying the IDF could have used special forces instead? Significantly different than where bin Laden was. I don't know. I honestly don't know if they could have used special forces. I do know that the United States decided not to do this because of the potential for loss of life. That's all I know. I mean, so, the standard there is, and I don't know. I mean, of course, I'm just going by the reporting here. Maybe the argument you're trying to make is in the absence of any other option. This was the only other option. And therefore, it was justified to kill all these innocent civilians. I mean,
hundreds.
That's the argument that you're making. I just don't think that. I don't think that's the case.
Also, like, this is not going to end Hezbollah. It's not going to end Hezbollah. Killing the leader of Hezbollah, that Israel already did that in 1992. Hezbollah actually grew in strength and was able to push Israel out of South Lebanon, where they were occupying in 2000. So this is about, one, trying to spark a regional war because they see an opportunity with Iran and they see an opportunity to pull the United States in. But two, it's also about giving symbolic victories within Israel, where I saw, apparently they're like handing out chocolates and celebrating in Israel right now. This means nothing in terms of like change. Perhaps, yes, you're damaging Hezbollah and their infrastructure, and maybe they will return to more of a guerrilla force as opposed to like being central to certain like civilian operations within Lebanon. Sure. But that doesn't change the position that Israel is in, which is in terms of like they are in a extreme death spiral at this moment where they're just killing everything that they can and anybody that they can to try to escalate this conflict.
Yeah, and let me just take this because we have some people who complain about us talking about that. I mean, I understand it's not the funnest part of the fun half, but
we have a responsibility.
Well, it's not even, it's like, the fact of the matter is the fun half has always been pitched, somewhat semi-ironically as the fun half. I mean, I'm not, going on long treaties about Social Security, which I know people think is really, really fun that we used to do in the fun half. But sexual dynamo. Sam, Pacman has almost 3 million subscribers and very rarely talks about the Middle East or trashes on Kamala. I don't watch Pacman's show with any type of regularity. I mean, I don't really watch anybody else's show with any type of regularity. But that is helpful to know when people accuse us of doing this because it somehow helps us with some non-existent YouTube community. There is no doubt. And I will tell you this right now, like I know for a fact, there is not a huge appetite for long drawn out explanations of the Social Security Trust Fund. I can't remember what court case it was because it ended up getting switched. The one that when Scalia died, God, I can't, the name escapes me at the moment, but it was about public sector unions being able to charge agency fees.
Janice?
It was Janice, but I think there was one before Janice that ended up dying and it got revived as Janice. And we must have done 30 shows on that. And I was like, I don't care if we have only 10 listeners at the end of this. They're going to know about this case.
Yeah.
So understand that's what we're doing. I want to play this clip. I'm old relative to about 75% of you, if, some of the statistics, at least on YouTube, are correct. I would imagine on Twitch, I'm also older than at least 75% of you, maybe more.
Poggers.
You can say, I don't believe these people, which is fine, because I don't believe anything that Biden says about this conflict anymore either. And I certainly don't believe Netanyahu. But I do not recall a time ever where this type of thing was even articulated in such a way that there could be some measure of accountability based upon their words. And here is the foreign minister of Jordan, Ayman al-Safdi. This is at a press conference at the United Nations yesterday following Netanyahu, I believe. I don't know how quickly, but here is Ayman al-Safdi.
I want to add one sentence. The Israeli Prime Minister came here today and said that Israel is surrounded by those who want to destroy it, an enemy. We're here, members of a Muslim Arab committee mandated by 57 Arab and Muslim countries. And I can tell you here, very unequivocally, all of us are willing to, right now, guarantee the security of Israel in the context of Israel ending the occupation and allowing for the emergence of a Palestinian state, independent state, along the efforts that we all agree. He is creating that danger because he simply does not want the two-state solution. And if he does not want the two-state solution, can you ask the Israeli officials, what is their end game? Other than just wars and wars and wars. I'm telling you, all of us in the Arab world here, we want a peace in which Israel lives in peace and security, accepted, normalized with all Arab countries in the context of ending the occupation, withdrawing from Arab territory, allowing for the emergence of an independent, sovereign Palestinian state on June 4, 1967, lies with occupied Jerusalem as capital. That is our narrative. And we will guarantee Israel's security in that context. Can you ask Israelis what's their narrative other than I'm going to continue to go to war, I'm going to kill this and kill that and destroy this and that. The amount of damage that Israeli government has done, 30 years of efforts to convince people that peace is possible, this Israeli government killed it. The amount of dehumanization, hatred, bitterness will take generations to navigate through. So ultimately the question is, we want peace. And we've laid out a plan for peace. Ask any Israeli official, what is their plan for peace? You'll get nothing because they're only thinking of the first step, we're going to go destroy Gaza, inflame the West Bank, destroy Lebanon, and after that, they have no plan. We have a plan. We have no partner for peace in Israel. There is a partner for peace in the Arab world.
I mean, the point here of this, of showing you this, is that regardless of, whether you are skeptical of what the Jordanian foreign minister, representing 57 Arab countries, what he says about his plans for peace, and whether you, believe that Palestinians should have a state or not. The fact is that everyone knows Israel has no plan. There's no, I've never heard anybody articulate how what Israel is doing is going to lead to peace. There is I believe, a very flawed argument that this is going to provide them some type of security, which of course is absurd.
It's de-escalation through escalation, Sam. You weren't convinced by that argument?
It's absurd. There's, almost a year ago, Lloyd Austin was saying, you're gonna win the battle, you're gonna lose the war. But there is no one who even pretends, nobody who even pretends that this is some type of path to peace. I mean, it would be absurd, I think, for someone to argue, well, if we kill enough people, we'll ultimately come to, have peaceful relations with them. But they're not even attempting that. They haven't even gotten that far in the level of absurdity. It is only, we're going to kill. We don't even have an end game. They don't even have an end game for their wars. There is no exit strategy.
None in Gaza either. I mean, that's what domestically in Israel, that's what part of what the whole thing has been with even Yoav Gallant, who is a war criminal accused, but, formally accused by the ICC. Emma Vigeland says is a war criminal, right? Whatever. But, that's domestically been the issue in Israel, too, because the IDF's a bit overextended from committing genocide in Gaza to then having to go to the north to fight in southern Lebanon. And they're invading. Right. And they want to do another reoccupation of southern Lebanon to expand Israel's territory, because at the end of the day, that's all this is about. And a lot of these leaders of the surrounding countries are propped up by U.S. aid money. They're complicit in a lot of the things like, keeping 2+ million Palestinians caged in an open air prison in Gaza. That's in part complicity from some of these leaders. Right. But you see, there's a limit, especially when Israel over the weekend bombs both Lebanon and Yemen. That's not even getting discussed right now. They also bombed in Yemen. They're expanding this war and trying to both goad Hezbollah and the Houthis in Yemen.
Oh, well, this is really ultimately
to get Iran involved. But So when Biden goes, I don't want a broader regional war, right? First of all, he has no credibility in these negotiations because of, one, the rank hypocrisy from the outset about what we talk about with a rules-based international order as it relates to Ukraine and respecting their sovereignty versus our entire Israel policy, and then now Lebanon. Do Lebanese people have sovereignty? I'd love to ask the administration that. Do they have respect to territorial, or should we respect their territorial integrity in the same way that we respect Ukraine's? Because Israel is invading southern Lebanon at this point, violating their sovereignty. Does that matter? Like what? And then with Biden being a lame duck, without using actual power, I know this is a blow to the old man's ego, but without using actual leverage, like weapons, they don't give a crap about you. You're an unpopular lame duck that's leaving office who most people think is an old fool. So what leverage outside of actual leverage do you think you have on the Israelis?
There was a great piece, I think it was in the Times, that was saying like, we can't, the United States can't figure out how to get Israel to listen. And then there's a paragraph that says like, the United States has considerable leverage with Israel, and then has 3 or 4 sentences about how how and why the U.S. is not using it. Which, in other words, is the U.S. has decided not to actually compel Israel to do what they're saying. That's just all just sort of like a hint, and we don't even know if that's more than just window dressing. Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.